Hi, Kwaheri here. Leo Tunapika. Continuing with our April cake-a-thon, today for my birthday, I'm coming to you with a simple vanilla cake recipe, and I'll try to zhuzh it up a bit. I've added a bit of strawberries in between the layers as I frosted, used some decadent white chocolate ganache, and let's bake my cake. For the ingredients, we're going to need butter or margarine. I'm using margarine today. Some sugar, just white granulated sugar, all-purpose flour. Our raising agent are both baking powder, baking soda, and some salt, eggs, and we're also going to need mala. But now, and vanilla essence. But now I don't have maziwa mala, so I want to show you how you can make your own mala at home when you don't have. All you need is some vinegar. So you take your milk here, then you add your vinegar, about a tablespoon, then you give it a stir. So the vinegar helps to curdle the milk, and then you get your substitute mala. Let me show you up close. I don't know whether you guys can see. You see the texture of the milk has changed, and that's how you make your own mala at home. So now let's get to mixing our cake. So we start by mixing our dry ingredients. So the all-purpose flour with the baking soda, baking powder, and salt. Try to give it a good mix. For the measurements, there's a link in the description to my blog tunapika.com, so you can get all the measurements for this cake. So once we mix this, we set that aside, and we want to cream our sugar and margarine. Don't forget, preheat your oven. So I'm preheating my oven. Always, as a rule of thumb, whenever you're baking, just before you start mixing your ingredients, preheat your oven so that by the time you're done mixing, your oven is ready. Today, I'm going to use a whisk, a handheld mixer. I want to show you something. Whenever you're mixing and you see the instructions say mix until fluffy and light, as you can see the color of our mixture right now, so we'll mix until it's slightly pale. Don't forget to scrape the sides of your bowl so that everything gets mixed. So we are almost there. We just want the sugar and the margarine or butter, whichever you're using, to mix completely. And there you have it. I don't know whether you can see the color has changed. It's become a bit creamier. Yeah, so that's why for this I'm using the mixer, because if I was using a whisk it would take much longer. But let that not deter you. If you don't have a mixer, you can just use a whisk or a mwiko. Just know it will require more elbow grease. Now we're going to add in our eggs one by one. Normally when a recipe calls for adding eggs one by one, I would urge you to adhere to it. Reason being, the adding of the eggs one by one, you know, the egg whites add more volume to the cake, and when you add it one by one, you're adding more air. So if a recipe says you add them one by one, please do so. And then my vanilla essence, as you all know, I measure with the bottle cup. And we are done. Now set aside your mixer. We're not needing that anymore. The mixture looks a bit curdled, but that's totally fine. So now we are going to add our flour, a third of the flour. Slightly mix, then add half of our prepared mala, half of it, and then just fold to mix. So folding is lifting, bringing, lift, bring, and then another third of our flour. the rest of our mala. Then the last bit of our flour mixture. And then now we fold until incorporated. For cake, you don't want to overmix. So once it's incorporated, you will just stop. Just folding, lifting from the bottom, bringing to the top. And just one final one. And you see, we are done. Don't worry much about the little on the sides. And our mixture is ready. So now we are going to put them in our tins. I want my cake to have some bit of height, so I'm going to use some 6-inch tins, and I'm going to divide into 3 of them. So for this batter, it yields about 1 kg of cake. So you can either use 3 6-inch tins, 3 7-inch tins, or even 2 8-inch tins. Don't worry, all this information is in my blog, so you can check out. So again, I'm using parchment paper just to cover the bottom of the tin. In case you're wondering where I bought these tins, I have a video on my YouTube, I'll link it up here, where I talk about baking equipment and where you can get baking equipment and tools and utensils here in Nairobi and its environs. So I'm going to measure about 330 per tin. So I'm going to use a spoon to just level the cake inside the tin. And now we're going to put the tins in the oven to bake for about 25 to 30 minutes at 300 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius. So as the cakes are baking, we're going to prepare our frosting. I'm going to do white chocolate ganache. So here I have some white chocolate cut up into small pieces, and then I've heated up some cream. I'm going to mix that all in. So you can use either heavy cream, double cream, or non-dairy cream. So we let that settle in for like a minute or so before stirring, and then I'm going to fill my cake with some strawberries. So I'm going to macerate. So macerating, you can use sugar. There are people who do with liquor, some balsamic, but now I'm just going to use sugar. So the sugar will draw out the moisture from the strawberries, then it will form a sort of syrup, and then this will be some sweet mixture. Giving that a mix with the spoon, and then I'll put this in the fridge to macerate for at least 30 minutes. As for the ganache, so I'm using a tiny whisk to just mix. Since our cream is hot, it melts the chocolate, and that's why you need to do small pieces of chocolate so that it melts faster. So we'll let this cool a bit, then we put it in the fridge to set. But yeah, that's how you make white chocolate ganache. Using a hand mixer or whisk, whip your ganache until it forms some soft to stiff peaks. Before frosting, I'm going to level the cakes. I'm using a serrated knife to remove the slight doming at the top so that there's no lopsidedness when I frost it. On our cake board, you're going to put a dollop of white chocolate ganache. This will secure the cake from moving when you're frosting. We put the first layer of the vanilla cake. Don't forget to remove the parchment paper. Then we're going to put a dollop of the whipped white chocolate ganache. Then using an offset spatula, try and spread out an even layer. And don't forget to put a ridge across the edges of the cake, or rather the circumference of the cake, so that it sort of acts as a border for when you put your macerated strawberries. And speaking of strawberries, how gorgeous do these look? They look so good. They have formed a sort of syrup. So I'm going to add the strawberries onto the cake to sort of fill them up. And then we're going to add the second layer of cake and repeat this procedure until we finish frosting our cake. Now we crumb coat the cake, which is basically just locking in the crumbs and preparing a perfect base for our final coat of frosting. So I'm just doing this all around the cake, the top of the cake, and then once it's done, I'll let it set in the fridge for about 30 minutes before doing the final coat. I chose to use some flowers on my cake. I'm working with chrysanthemums. So when you're working with flowers and the flowers are not edible, it's best to cover the stem of the flower that will be inside the cake, either with floral tape or some aluminum foil. That's what I'm doing here. So each and every stem of the mum is being covered. Then set aside the flowers in readiness for decoration. With our cake fully set, we are going now to do the final coating of the frosting. So the rest of the white chocolate ganache, and spread it out and then smoothen it with a dough scraper just to make everything look all beautiful. And then to go the extra mile, I reserved a bit of the ganache and colored 2 shades of purple, one lighter than the other. Then I made splotches around the cake with my palette knife just to make it look beautiful. Doesn't it look pretty? Anyway, to finalize, we're going to add on our flowers, put them however you like. This is how I chose to put mine, and look at that cake. Isn't it a beaut? Finally, just because I want to be extra and it's my birthday, I decided to use some edible gold luster dust just to sort of powder my cake. It's like the, what do you call this in makeup, like the highlight. Anyway, so using the powdered gold luster dust, just spray it all over the cake, and there you have it, my birthday cake. That's how you make a simple vanilla cake. Well, I'm not going to cut it on camera because we're going to celebrate with my family, but follow me on Instagram to see how the inside of the cake looks like. As I said, the recipe is on my blog, tunapika.com, link in the description bar. That's it. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Don't forget to tap on that notification bell so that you don't miss out on all the other recipes coming your way. And from me, Kwaheri.